Welcome to the i24NEWS National Security Podcast in partnership with INSS, the Institute for National Security Studies. I'm your host, Nicole Zedek. Each week, we're bringing you an in-depth discussion with expert analysts on some of the most pressing national security challenges facing Israel today. So, let's get started. Israel is in a new phase of war, with its main attention shifting towards the north in recent days. After nearly a year of daily cross-border attacks with Hezbollah and Lebanon, Israel is starting to change the security situation in the newly named Operation Northern Arrows. Over the past week, the IDF is said to have set Hezbollah's capabilities back by years, with unprecedented strikes targeting key assets like long-range precision missiles, medium-range rockets, cruise missiles, a massive arsenal the Iranian proxy has been able to build up really ever since the Second Lebanon War in 2006. And it's not just the weaponry Israel is targeting. It's key leaders, such as Ibrahim Akil, chief of Hezbollah's military operations and a key commander in the elite Radwan force, who was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Beirut. All of this as thousands of Hezbollah operatives are still injured from the exploding pagers and walkie-talkies in one of the most precise, pinpointed intelligence attacks to date. But Israel is paying a cost as well. Hezbollah is intensifying its bombardment, with an increasing number of projectiles firing towards Israel's third largest city, Haifa, in the north of the country. In the center, hundreds of thousands were forced to run to a shelter this week when Hezbollah fired a ballistic missile toward Tel Aviv for the first time ever, which was shot down by Israel's David Sling. Right now, Hezbollah is arguably the most serious military threat to Israel's borders. And even though the terror group has suffered its most damaging week since the Second Lebanon War, the worst is likely far from over, and Israel has yet to feel the brunt of Hezbollah's pledged attacks. There's quite a lot to discuss when it comes to Iran's greatest proxy, Hezbollah. So to give us some more insight, I am joined now by Orna Mizrahi, senior researcher at the Institute for National Security Studies and former deputy national security advisor. Orna, thank you for being with us here on the National Security Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this week especially, it has been the most damaging week to Hezbollah since 2006. Yet still, since 2006, Hezbollah has acquired quite the massive arsenal inside Lebanon as well. So when we're taking a look at still Hezbollah's operational and military capabilities, what does it look like right now?
I think that Hezbollah paid a very high price. They suffer a lot of damage to their infrastructure, to their equipment, weapons, missiles, launchers, etc. Some say something like 50% of their launchers and missiles were destroyed. I'm not sure that this is the number, but it's a lot. But what it says that they have still the possibility to continue with the firing of their rockets of all ranges. As we saw in the south, that Hamas, till the last missile, he was trying to retaliate. So Hezbollah can do that. But the big question is if they want to do it and what is their intention. Because I think if I look at the retaliation after they have suffered so much, I think they are a little bit restrained because in the first 2 days it was just to Haifa and then one rocket to Tel Aviv. After really big, huge offensive initiative of the IDF. So it makes me to think that maybe the motivation to go to a full-scale war is not there.
Necessarily there right now. I thought
from the day one, they don't want a full-scale war. Hezbollah as well as the Iranians, because they understand that in a full-scale war they are going to lose a lot, and the Iranians don't want to be involved directly. And this is why they are a little bit restrained, and this is why we are starting to hear about these initiatives to have some kind of political solution just for a ceasefire, not anything more, but This is what they are talking today.
And we'll talk more about the different possibilities that Israel has going forward. But right now, when you talk about Hezbollah's capabilities, it's not only the weaponry that they've lost over the past week, it's key leaders as well. Yeah. People have been leading the military campaign within Hezbollah for decades at this point. So without this leadership, we heard from the Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei just yesterday actually stating that it's not a heavy blow. But is it truly not a heavy blow, and is this really what is weakening some of Hezbollah's attacks right now?
When I look at Hezbollah now and compare it to what they have been doing and the self-confidence that they had and the abilities that they have before the 7th of October, I think there is a big difference. They suffered a lot of damage to their capabilities and to the chain of command, to the military senior commanders. We know that most of them are not there anymore. Some of them were very close to the ear of Nasrallah, that he's leading everything, but he needs its advisors. It doesn't mean that there are not others and that they cannot be replaced. They can be replaced, but you know, in a time of war that you have to take very quick decisions, you need these people that you trust, and they are not there. So it's also a problem. So just to say about what the leader of Iran said, I think that the Iranians are looking at their own interests. And what he has said came because he doesn't want Iranian to be involved in this war. And he has to justify that. So he says they can do it by themselves, but and I think if I was Nasrallah, I was a little bit worried if I knew that my companion and the one that has to be there for me is not there in a time of trouble. And they are in a time of big trouble.
So should Iran be sending more support to its largest, most powerful proxy right now? Are you expecting Iran to have a bigger say in a potential war in the north, or really Iran just encouraging all of the other proxies on all of the other fronts to do its dirty work for it?
This is the Iranian strategy to make the other proxies to work and do the job for them, and not do it by themselves and not being involved by themselves. They did it once during this almost a year of a war in the north, and all other proxies were also involved. Just Assad is not there, and because it's a situation, and but they're all involved, and the Iranians were involved directly just once on the 13th of April, and it was a very bad experience because they saw that this attack caused this coalition of Western forces led by the US and also regional forces coming together with Israel to stop this attack. So it's a very bad experience, I think, and because of this, they learned that they need not to come into
they don't necessarily need to fully be backing their strongest proxy right now and get personally involved, it seems. But
exactly, they don't want to be involved because they are going to pay a lot of price.
The whole point of proxy warfare.
Some of the internal situation in Iran nowadays. And that they have to care about the economic, and I think that the new president wants to lead a new engagement with US about the nuclear deal, a new nuclear deal, to ease the sanctions. So they have their own interests, and they don't want to be involved in a war now. They understand that it's not the right time for them to do that.
Orna, you also mentioned the term trust right now, and it seems like a lot of trust has been lost when it comes to Hezbollah, especially over the past week. The psychological toll that it's taken on them by having this immense security breach when it comes to the pagers, the walkie-talkies, their communication devices. Even though Israel has not claimed responsibility, limiting how Hezbollah is able to communicate. They're having to meet in person. Once they do meet in person, we're seeing these targeted assassination attempts to eliminate the top leaders. So the psychological toll, do you think Hezbollah is scared right now?
I think they are embarrassed and in a big dilemma what to do next and how to continue with that. Because, you know, they connected themselves with the war of Gaza. They made this linkage and said, we won't stop till the war in Gaza stops. And now they are, you know, they are in it, and they cannot come and say, okay, we can stop. And on the other side, they lost a lot, and they don't want to get to a full-scale war. I think what deters them the most is the possibility of a land maneuver that everybody in Israel is talking about. And I think the Israeli military apparatus is very serious about getting inside and having at least limited land maneuver in Lebanon. And they don't want it. Although in his last speech, Nasrallah was saying, we have prepared a lot of traps for the troops, the Israeli troops that are coming into Lebanon, and we can deal with them. I'm not sure that he wants that Israel will enter Lebanon and to be involved in another so-called occupation of Israel in Lebanon and its implications.
And it certainly seems like Israel is laying the groundwork for a possible land operation by all of the airstrikes we've seen. And especially over the past week, Israelis, for the most part, seem to be very proud of the work that the IDF is doing. I want to talk about a recent survey from the Institute for National Security Studies, from the INSS, their September Swords of Iron survey. 2/3, 65% of respondents, they believe the IDF will win this war in the north. 2/3 also express high and very high degrees of confidence in both the IDF and the Air Force. So despite all of the other some disparities we might see in the public sector and society here in Israel, a very high percentage of them do seem to believe in the IDF and believe that they could win against this large threat of Hezbollah.
Yeah, and I think that what the IDF has done in the last few weeks in the northern front just, come to show how much the IDF can do, what is the real power that the IDF possesses. And, it's not just the operational ability, it's intelligence. The Hezbollah is so much exposed to the Israeli intelligence, and this is why we could do all of this. If we were behind the Pager's explosion, so it's astonishing. It's a dramatic action that I think it will be learned by the military historians, and they will think what kind of warfare it is. This is the new technological warfare. So it's really a very sophisticated action that caused so much damage with and then the airstrikes and the fact that we have so little damage inside Israel after these airstrikes. So I think that the self-confidence of the Israeli citizens is building up because of what the IDF is doing in the last few weeks.
And Israel is no stranger, unfortunately, to war in Lebanon. We've seen the first and second Lebanon War. The second was in 2006, though. It's been about 20 years since Israel really operated inside Lebanon. And so how has the battleground changed since then? You talk about some of the capabilities, even exploding walkie-talkies, pager devices, but also warfare on its own has drastically changed over the past two decades.
Yeah, let's look what was happening since 2006. On one side, we had a very silent border because although Nasrallah is talking about a big success and a victory in the Second Lebanon War, it wasn't a victory. And they started to think what to do and how to continue from that point. And they invested a lot in the military buildup, a lot with the help of Iran in the military buildup. And this was one of the issues that was happening during these 20 years. Very silent border, but the buildup of Hezbollah's military power, you cannot compare it 10 times and more than what they had in 2006, and more sophisticated than what we have seen then. Another thing that happened was that they were coming down and closer to the Israeli border. And it was against the 1701 Security Council, because the Security Council
pushed back across the Litani River.
Yeah, and they from day one they started to come down, and some of them are living there. Most of them are living there in the Shiite villages. So they were there, but the military presence became more obvious. And in the last few years, they gained self-confidence that they can do more against the IDF, that they can change the balance of power between the IDF and Hezbollah. And from that point, on the 8th of October, they decided they are joining, and they are trying to do what they've done alone 1 year, and they thought that it's a big victory for them, and accounted their gains, and especially the fact that they created this a security belt, as they call, on the Israeli side, because of the 60,000 evacuees from the northern communities along the border. But in these few weeks, something changed.
The situation, the solution, it seems to be changing. And so the question right now is kind of, where do we go from here, Orna?
Before we go from here, I want to emphasize one thing that I don't think that people pay attention. There was a gap between the self-confidence that was building in Hezbollah, of Hezbollah, and on the other side, Israel didn't do anything because feeling a kind of strength that we can do with it. It's nothing. We can do with it. We have a very strong army, but they looked at it differently. They looked at it as weakness, and this gap led to the situation that on the 8th of October they decided to initiate this war of attrition that they are leading till now.
So is Israel, or had Israel been underestimating Hezbollah's capabilities?
I don't think we were underestimating their capabilities. On the other hand, sometimes I feel we are frightening ourselves, because we can do with that. We have the best air defense in the world, and we can do with that. And we see, although it was just one rocket on Tel Aviv, but we could easily do with that. And before the attack that they were trying by the UAVs to do in Glilot, as Nasrallah was saying, as retaliation, and he said that it was a big success, lying and saying that there are lots of injured people, soldiers, Israeli soldiers. We could with that also and prevented it. So our capabilities are enormous, both offensive and defensive. So we can do that, and we can continue with this war, and this is important to...
So how should Israel then continue with this war? I want to read you about 5 different options that are kind of on the table right now, Orna. The first one being continued war of attrition that we've seen for the past year at this point, and no change in the status quo. The second is more of a limited attack, where Israel tries to push Hezbollah back across the Litani River, and that's about it. The third option is Israel actually tries to stay in there and keep this little section of land between Israel and Lebanon. The fourth, a full-blown war where Israel really tries to go after Hezbollah's military capabilities and set them back by years. And the fifth, diplomatic solution, a ceasefire, and then we kind of see all cards off the table through the diplomatic route. What do you think will happen? So
it can be, a combination of some of the issues that the possibility that you have raised, because every war ends with a political solution. At least every war with Lebanon ended with a political solution. So the political solution at the end is there, but the question is how we get there. And what are the conditions of this political solution? And I think that we are in a point that Hezbollah is in a very bad situation, and we have to continue with what we can do to minimize the capabilities of this organization, because before we are getting to some kind of political solution. Now, you will ask, do you mean that we have to go to a land maneuver or to a full-scale war? I'm not sure about not full-scale war. I think that we have few steps before that. And even I'm not sure that we have to go to a land maneuver, maybe a minimal, although I don't see the achievements that it is going to cause us. Maybe for a little time and then to withdraw with this political solution or something like that, not to stay there for sure. But what we have to do nowadays is continue with the strikes, the airstrikes, and do the best we can till we have no more targets on the Lebanese side, and not run to a ceasefire that gives us nothing. We have to look at the conditions of the ceasefire. What does it mean? And actually, it's very important. What does it mean about Gaza and the hostages?
Because right now, these two wars are linked together. Hezbollah has made that link clear. But all the while, as Israel's turning its attentions towards the north, especially people who have family members who are still hostage in Gaza, they say that their attention has been lost and their loved ones are still trapped there with no possibility, they say, of a ceasefire right now.
Yeah, this is why we have to look at the condition of these proposals that are running now on the table. If it's just for the north, if it includes the south, what it says about the south, what it says about the hostage deal, and then go for that political solution. For sure, it has to be, it will have a few phases. First, a ceasefire, and then the negotiations, because they want a ceasefire, and that the IDF will stop its operations. We can do that, but we have to be sure that that the condition for this ceasefire are very clear about what's going to happen in the future, where Hezbollah is going to be, where is the Lebanese state is going to be, and what's going to be in the south, especially about the hostage deal.
And you think that this type of a solution could be enough to allow the 60,000 plus evacuated residents to safely return home, mitigate future harm and damage to them as well, and really change the security situation on the north?
I feel that the evacuees are going to return their home very immediately after they feel there is a silence along the border, because there are people that are very committed to...
People are committed to going back to their homes at this point. Many people want to be right there on the border.
My understanding is that the people of the evacuees people want to go back home. They want to be at home. And at the time there's going to be, a few days of a ceasefire, they will go there. Maybe not all of them, but I'm sure that new people, and young, communities will come and be in the north, and we can get to be in the point that there is a very silent border again, that the people can live there, and we will go to see this beautiful northern part of Israel.
Orna, before we end, I want to ask a few quick questions. We've been going more in depth now, but I want to ask a few quick questions and just give me your initial quick reaction to that. First, does Hezbollah want a full war?
I think no. And I thought like this before the 7th of October, and I thought that they don't want a full scale all the along the last year, and I think it's still the.
And what about Iran? Does Iran? Does Iran want a full-scale war?
And Iran doesn't want a full scale. For me, for sure they don't want. And if you look at their modus operandi along this year, for sure they don't want a full scale war.
Will Israel send troops into Lebanon for a ground operation?
The possibility is there. It depends on how it's going to, what are the developments on both on the military sphere and the political sphere.
After a year of fighting, though, is Israel prepared and ready for this type of warfare with Hezbollah?
I think we are ready. I think we are ready, and you know, the Israeli society can bear it. It's important for us, and we can do with it now that we are not so much focused on the south. We can do that, but I'm not sure we need it. Maybe we don't need the full land maneuver to destroy Hezbollah. This must not be the goal of this war. It's not the time for that. But we can, if we have no other choice, we can go in and do what needs to create this security and feeling of security for the evacuees to come back.
It certainly seems to be the necessary change. One more question, Orna. Right now, where exactly is Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah, and does Israel know?
It's a question that I cannot answer.
Okay.
Because usually it is in the bunker,
yes.
But sometimes he's going out. I'm not sure that this day is going out to somewhere. Everybody are coming to him. He's secured.
That's why all of these speeches are always in an underground, undisclosed location. But
yeah, in a video.
Yes. Oh, well, Orna Mizrahi, there seems to be a lot that we can continue to discuss with Hezbollah and the growing threat against Israel and how Israel will respond to that threat. And we'll certainly have to see in the coming days, weeks, and months even. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the National Security Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And to all of our viewers listening as well, that's all we have for you on this latest edition of the National Security Podcast. Thank you so much for listening.